All right, this is Chase Hummer, and I did lockout tagouts for my final project, and I'll be discussing this with you. I picked this project because lockout tagouts are something I deal with on a daily basis. I do industrial steam boiler work, and we go to a variety of different plants, from chicken plants to petroleum plants. So we get to deal with the best and the worst of the worst when it comes to their maintenance practices and what goes into everything. So I've seen a lot and I've learned a lot, and I kind of have an idea of what works and what doesn't work. So kind of the basics. We'll talk about the basic facts of lockout tagouts, common errors I see, lockout tagout importance, a general guide to it, and the issues I had trying to make this report and writing my paper. All right, lockout tagouts are extremely overlooked. So when OSHA comes to a plant, they are required to announce that they're doing a site visit. So what that does at every plant I've been to, for the most part, if they know OSHA's planning to come, they cut back on their maintenance, and it makes sense. I would do it too. What that does is OSHA doesn't get to see as much of the maintenance because plants aren't doing it because they don't want to get the citation. So the lockout tagout aspect of it's harder to find. Uh, in order for lockout tagouts to work, everyone who works in the plant kind of needs to understand them. It just can't be the maintenance guys, production crew, cleaners. Everyone has to understand that. And then a lot of lockout tagout issues don't go reported and they don't end up being documented because most of them don't have to be documented unless a serious injury occurs or serious equipment damage occurs. They're not really required to be documented. And then these are the common errors kind of summed up that I see quite often. No matter your seniority at a plant, if you've been at the same plant 30 years doing the same maintenance once a week, once a month, that doesn't change the fact that electricity still hurts you, steam still hurts you. It doesn't make your body any stronger. It makes you smarter, but it doesn't necessarily make you any safer from the dangers of that maintenance. And then another thing, no matter how short and simple the job is, if a lockout is required, you have to use a lockout. I know I've done tons of maintenance items that are supposed to take 10 minutes, and then you disconnect one flange to perform an inspection or something of that nature. But there's no telling what you might get called out for while you're doing that inspection. If you gotta leave it halfway through, if there's an emergency, you have to go run somewhere. The next thing you know, you left a essentially ticking time bomb for someone else to have to deal with. And just because you're the only person in a plant doesn't get you out of a lockout. We see this a lot too because we do a lot of work on the weekends, and there are a lot of guys who think that since none of the other maintenance guys are there, the production crew's not running, that they can just work on the assembly line or the pump or the press or whatever they're working on just because no one else is there to possibly turn it on, which it doesn't take much. It could be a janitor bumping a switch, and next thing you know, you're caught in a machine. So it doesn't lockouts don't take long. I recommend for they're always recommended to be performed. So it's just an easy way to keep yourself safe. And these are some of the kind of interesting facts I found. OSHA reported that proper lockout tagout controls prevent 120 deaths and 50,000 injuries a year. And as I talked about earlier, this is really hard to kind of put into a statistic just because most of it doesn't go reported and you can't really track down who's doing them right, who's not, and who has good controls, who doesn't. And there's just so many people in the industry that has to use the lockout tagouts that it's hard to report a statistic on this. And then a lot of lockout tagouts result in equipment damage, not necessarily personnel injury or anything that were required them to be reported. I've seen a lot of people who go do maintenance, lockout, tagout, and this gets real complicated when you have multiple lockouts on different pieces of equipment and maintenance overhaul periods and stuff like that, where you're trying to start one piece of equipment and another one's locked out and stuff of that nature, improperly clearing a lockout, things similar to that. And stored energy is one of the biggest issues people run into when they're locking out a piece of equipment. So as I discussed earlier, we work on steam boilers. So even though I cut off the disconnect to the power coming into the boiler, and I valve off the gas or fuel to it, That doesn't get rid of the energy that's in that boiler. Most of the boilers we work on run at 100 psi and 350-ish degrees. So that's more than enough energy, pressure and temperature wise to cause severe injuries. So that's one of the main things, compressed air tanks, capacitors. When I was in the Navy, we had to discharge capacitors prior to go to work, do safe to work checks, stuff like that. And I was just amazed at how much of that doesn't carry over to the civilian world. So this is kind of the OSHA recommended lockout tagout procedure. So you want to notify all the employees about the required lockout. That gets everyone on the same page and helps prevent people from walking up and being like, "Hey, I need this running." They kind of understand why it's not running right now. And then you want to shut down the equipment using the normal stopping procedure. You don't want to just kill the disconnect or anything like that. That helps the equipment to be shut down safely, and for a lot of equipment that removes a lot of the stored energy. And we'll locate and isolate the equipment from all energy sources, so mechanical, electrical, fluid, all those different energy sources. And you want to release any stored energy. This is what we discussed earlier. Uh, you want to vent off air and steam, compressed gas tanks, discharge capacitors, and then go ahead and lock out all the switches and controls, because you can't, for a lot of things, you can't do that with energy still in it. Then you'll have to go back and relock them out. And then this is the dummy check. So you want to make sure there's no personnel near or exposed to the equipment. And then you want to attempt to start it. This gives you that peace of mind knowing that even if someone wants to try and start the equipment you're working on, that they can't start it. And then you want to perform your maintenance, remove all lockout devices, and then you'll notify all the employees, probably your manager, maintenance supervisor, that work's done, and then you can return that piece of equipment to use. And these are kind of some good practices and trainings I've come across, kind of recommended. So if an accident occurs and no damage is done, it's still a good idea to document the accident as a lesson learned. It prevents other workers from doing the same thing. So something that happened to me recently, we were doing repair on the steam boiler at a chicken plant, and there were some guys inside working on a valve. So the boiler was down for our repair, and I had a lock on it. And we completed our repair, and we were firing it back up to do a pressure test. Well, the guys inside didn't have a lock on it. They didn't understand the system, and we fired it up, started building pressure on it, and then they came running out because they had a valve off in the plant, and they didn't understand that just because the boilers were down doesn't mean they weren't going to come back up. So no one got hurt. There wasn't any equipment damage, but it's still, we wrote it down to make sure to go check with other maintenance facilities, maintenance crews in the plant before we started up. And then we corrected the other company that was working inside to let them know that they have to properly lock out their maintenance area. And then training is vital to a good lockout program. Every employee needs to understand what's going on. You understand what a lockout looks like, what it means when a lockout's going on. Best way to do that is to train people as soon as you hire them. That way they have a basic on training. We recommend doing it at least yearly or after any time there's an incident and there's something to be learned from it. I mean, learning from your mistakes is good. Learning from other people's mistakes is even better. And then issues I had doing this study. So there was a lack of peer reviews for this study. I searched and searched and searched for trying to find stuff for the last 5 years. I ended up buying one, and I just couldn't find that much on either control of maintenance or lockout tagouts. That was my biggest issue. And then, as I discussed before, the statistics, finding accurate statistics on lockout tagouts is hard just because based on the documentation available for them. And then lockout tagouts can be tedious on really big systems, but they'll save your butt more than they'll hurt you. So taking your time doing them right is very important. It helps everyone go home the same way that they came in. And that's it for my report. Thank you.